Texas football overcomes a Red River hangover to survive Iowa State's furious upset push on Saturday afternoon. The 2022-23 NBA season kicks off this week after another offseason with enough drama to make the desperate Housewives producers jealous. An MLB playoff bracket is completely busted after a couple of massive upsets in the early series. All this and more coming up on College Press Box.
Good evening and welcome to College Press Box. I'm your host, Joseph Duffey, and I'm privileged to be joined by my fellow Frisco, Texas native, Carter Yates. And we've got a great show for you today. And Carter, I believe we had some Longhorn football this past Saturday.
Yeah, let's get into the highlights from Saturday afternoon. Keelan Robinson forces a blocked punt on Texas' opening drive right here, but the Longhorns can't jump on the loose ball, and that proved costly as Bert Auburn missed the field goal. 3rd and goal, Hunter Deckers with an easy pitch and catch to Jalen Knoll for the first score of the ball game. Iowa State converted 9 of 15 third downs on the day. The Cyclones starting to go up by 14 early in the second quarter, but Jalen Ford reads Deckers' eyes like a Harry Potter book and comes down with an interception. Quinn Ewers has his man Xavier Worthy in one-on-one coverage, and that's a matchup he's going to go to every time. Big play as they finish the day with 72 yards and 2 touchdowns. Time winding down now in the first half, and Bijan Robinson takes it, puts on the brakes, and changes direction for a big game. Says, how's that stiff arm taste as he goes out of bounds? But it's not just on the ground. Here he runs a post pattern and high points the football to set up the go-ahead score. That's why he's going to be a first-round draft pick, folks. And now midway through the third quarter, Deckers finds Jalen Knoll, and he burns the Texas defense. Knoll had 2 touchdowns and 94 yards, most of them coming on that catch and run. Early in the fourth now, 3rd and a mile, and that's Xavier Hutchinson, the first-team All-Big 12 receiver, had 12 catches for 154 yards, and Deckers decides 4th and goal. I'm going to do it myself. Finished the game 38 yards on the ground rushing. 4th and goal, the game on the line. Quinn Ewers shows the ice in his veins with the TD toss to Worthy. Nearing 2 minutes play in the fourth, and Deckers goes for it all for a wide open Hutchinson. It's going to be a touchdown, and it's actually dropped. And that proved to be the game because a couple plays later, Deckers tries to scramble, and he is rocked by the senior safety, Anthony Cook. Ball's on the turf, and Texas grabs it. Cook flexing on the Cyclones as he should, because he just made the game-winning play. Texas wins 24-21.
And now we'll take it over to our very own Jason Kinander, who attended the football game this past weekend. And here's what he had to say.
Texas returned home from last weekend's Red River route to face off against a different shade of red, the Crimson of Iowa State. With that different shade of red came a different challenge. Here's how it went down on Saturday.
If Texas football thought last week's 49-0 trouncing of Oklahoma was a sign of things to come, they thought wrong. The Longhorns pulled out a come-from-behind win thanks to a late Xavier Worthy touchdown from Quinn Ewers in the fourth quarter, with a fumble from Iowa State quarterback Hunter Deckers with less than 2 minutes to go, sealing the game for Texas. The win was especially important for Texas for 2 reasons. First, a number of highly touted recruits were in Austin for the game, specifically all-world quarterback Arch Manning. As for the current Texas Longhorns, they are now winners of 3 straight, improving to 3-1 and second place in the Big 12 Conference, ahead of next weekend's massive showdown against Oklahoma State in Stillwater.
Texas able to escape with the win by the score of 24-21 in a game where not much went right for the Longhorns, but they did the little things correctly at the end and are able to escape with the win. It'll be Iowa State next weekend in a big-time matchup with big-time Big 12 championship implications, but until then, the Longhorns are victorious. That's all from me today. For Student Television, I'm Jason Kinander.
And now I'm lucky to be joined by our very own Texas football analyst, Adam Ogburn, Robert Gonsoulin. Thank you for joining us, fellas. And Adam, I'll start with you. What is your biggest takeaway from this past game?
Oh, man, it was a heck of a game. But you know what? Steven Sarkisian, he said this in his press conference after the game, and I agree with him 100%. Texas doesn't win this game a year ago. A mark of a great team isn't that they play great every week, but they find ways to win. Just look at how Georgia barely survived Missouri 2 weeks ago. The Bulldogs outscored the Tigers 14-3 in the final quarter for an ugly 26-22 victory. Similarly, Texas found itself down in the fourth quarter against a team it was a heavy favorite against. But unlike last year, where a second half collapse seemed inevitable, the Longhorns stepped up and made a series of plays in the final 10 minutes. First, the offensive line, which had been known for its run blocking, helped Bijan Robinson and Roschon Johnson combine for 49 total yards on 4 consecutive rushes. Then on fourth goal, the Longhorns got a big-time play from the receiver Quinn Ewers. He ran a beautiful route. Receiver Xavier Worthy. He ran a beautiful route, gaining separation from the defenders, and Quinn Ewers found him for the 3-yard score. And then lastly, it was the defense who rose to the occasion on that final Iowa State possession. Anthony Cook rocketing in there to force a fumble on the final drive, where it honestly seemed like Iowa State was almost destined to score after watching Texas football over the years. So, Texas didn't play great, but the Longhorns found a way to be resilient and grind out a win, and that's a win that's going to keep them right in the race for a Big 12 championship berth.
Absolutely. And Robert, moving on to you, this defense came through when it mattered most on Saturday. But how would you evaluate their overall performance on their 24-21 win?
Well, Joe, while the defense made big plays all game, there's definitely room for improvement in the secondary. Hunter Dekkers threw for 329 yards and 25 completions, and there were many times where he was able to connect with his receivers on third downs for big games. Not to mention that the 50-yard bomb that Xavier Hutchinson dropped when he was wide open at the end of the game. However, there were many times where they came up big on top of the forced fumble that sealed the deal with Jalen Ford's leap for an interception early in the first quarter, which led to Quinn Ewers leading the offense down to the other end zone to make it 7-7 instead of 14-0. The run defense was also great. Only 74 total yards were allowed the entire game, with no touchdowns coming from any of their running backs. Overall, the defense did their job at the perfect times on Saturday, but their weakness in stopping downfield completions on third down was not concealed.
Right now, gentlemen, this last question is for both of you. What does Texas need to fix ahead of this game against Oklahoma State in order to come away with a crucial victory on the road in Stillwater? Adam, I'll start with you.
Yeah, you're talking about the secondary, the third down weakness. I think Texas's defense's inability to get off the field. That was one of the defining reasons they lost to Texas Tech a couple weeks ago, and it reared its ugly head again on Saturday. Iowa State, they were 9 of 15 on third downs on Saturday. You just go to the second half, they convert 2 third and 10s, a 3rd and 8, a 3rd and 13, and they score a touchdown 3rd and 9 on Decker's quarterback scramble. I mean, Texas simply has to find a way to get off the field on 3rd and longs. Another issue, Texas had just 1 sack, and that came on 2nd down by Moro Jomo. Texas has got to find a way to get pressure on quarterbacks, or else they're going to continue to get picked apart in the secondary on these crucial 3rd and longs. And then talking about the secondary, Texas needs to work on scheme this week, because at times their zone coverage was absolutely abysmal. Too many times Iowa State quarterback Hunter Decker was able to find wide receivers open across the middle. Texas got away with that. They got away with it, and then against an Iowa State offense that lacked firepower, they're not going to be so lucky this week against Oklahoma State, led by Spencer Sanders. We saw how explosive they were against
Great
TCU.
Quarterback, absolutely. How about you, Robert?
I think we've both talked about the defense enough already, so I'm going to take a different angle on this. Special teams and penalties. Despite taking their first loss to TCU this past weekend, Oklahoma State is still no joke. They're ranked 11th in the country, so there's very little room for error in these areas. Special teams needs to be on their A game. Although he's come up clutch for Texas multiple times this season, Burt Ogburn cannot afford to miss a field goal in this upcoming game. He's missed 4 already this season, and missing 1 against OSU could potentially change the outcome of the game in a huge way. If I were him, I would make sure to get my mind right this week and do everything I need to do in practice in order to feel prepared. Punt team, let's make sure we try to pin OSU deep in their territory as much as possible. As for the penalties, it's a different type of fix, but communication needs to be key, and they have to play fast. Try to limit the pass interference and holding calls to a minimum, and the Horns should be in good shape.
All right, Adam and Robert, thank you for joining us tonight. Carter, back to you at the desk.
Thank you, Adam and Robert. When we come back on College Press Box, our very own Justin Goosman is going to give you his NBA preview, complete with an MVP pick, an NBA final prediction, and maybe some dark horse squads that could shake up the playoffs come next spring. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to College Press Box. It was another tantalizing NBA offseason filled with trade demands and superstar swaps, so we can't blame you if your head is spinning a bit. So that's why we've got Justin Goosman here to catch you up to speed. Justin, give us your NBA preview.
Well, Carter, while we're filming this on Monday, by the time you're seeing this, the NBA will be getting underway. After a loaded offseason of trade rumors, new acquisitions, and a couple fights breaking out, the NBA is finally back this week. Tonight, I'll discuss my picks for MVP of the league, who I have coming out of the East and who I have coming out of the West. Then, I'll give one dark horse team from each conference who could wreak havoc come playoff time. But let's start with my MVP pick, which is a little unorthodox. As Luka Doncic is the favorite, I actually have Kevin Durant coming down with the MVP. And no, it's not just because he's a former Longhorn. After all the drama of the offseason, the Nets are coming to play with an upgraded roster, a healthy Ben Simmons, and a lethal scorer in KD. I still have the Nets as a top 3 or 4 team in the East, and after an offseason filled with question marks, if KD can put the ball in the bucket at his normal clip and the Nets are atop the East come April, there's no reason why Kevin Durant shouldn't have a great shot at the award. Now, for my picks to come out of each conference, in the West, I think the playoffs are an absolute bloodbath, but I don't see anybody stopping Golden State. The depth, the star power, and the experience they have is difficult to pick against. Adding guys like Dante DiVincenzo, getting a healthy James Wiseman, this season could really elevate the reigning champs. Although Draymond and Jordan Poole got into their scuffle and that raised a lot of questions, if there's one team that can get past it and have a chance to repeat, it's the Golden State Warriors. As you can see, James Wiseman looked really good. But out of the East, I'm actually going to go with the Philadelphia 76ers. Arguably one of the best off seasons in the NBA, adding PJ Tucker, Daniel House, Montrezl Harrell, and DeAnthony Melton, the 76ers are undoubtedly going to be a difficult team to beat 4 times out of 7. James Harden looks like he's back in great shape. Tyrese Maxey is going to continue to improve, and Joel Embiid is a mismatch for any team in the league. They made the right moves to get Harden comfortable, and they match up well with any team in the East. I really think the 76ers take a big step this year and make it out. Questions surrounding the Celtics and a lack of athleticism for Milwaukee outside of Giannis Antetokounmpo scares me in the East, and that's exactly why I think the 76ers are poised to get over that hump this season. Now, I'll keep my dark horse teams quick, but out of the West, I really like the New Orleans Pelicans. Willie Green had that team rolling last year, and that was without Zion Williamson, who last time we saw him was casually averaging the most efficient 27 points per game since Shaq. Now, as you can see here, Zion's athleticism is clearly back as he got to the rim, rocked it against the Bulls in their preseason game. But out of the East, I really like Cleveland. The addition of Donovan Mitchell makes them impossible backcourt to defend, and with arguably the best defensive front court in the league, they'll be a tough out for anyone. Watch out for those Cavaliers this year, folks. For the first time in the last 20 years, the Cavs look like a scary team without LeBron James being the centerpiece. All right, let's get back to Joe and Carter at the desk.
Thanks for joining us, Justin. When we return, Debanny Cerda is going to join the show to bring us up to speed on a wild MLB playoff prediction. You won't want to miss it.
Welcome back into College Press Box. Over an eventful MLB playoff weekend, our very own Debanny Cerda is here to give us an update on the MLB playoff picture. Debanny?
What a crazy week it has been for the MLB as the playoff is in full swing. We are a few games away from the World Series happening. Before we do a full deep dive, we have an upcoming matches and more. Starting off, we had the Philadelphia Phillies upset the 2020 World Series championships, the Atlanta Braves. Although they did not go down without a fight, the Phillies ultimately came up on top, winning the series 3-1. The Braves were able to make Game 4 interesting in the 9th inning as Matt Olson delivers a single home run to bring the game 7-6. However, as we look more into the final score, the Phillies Castellanos with an incredible game-winning catch to send the Braves back to Atlanta. During Game 1, the Braves started with all-star Max Freeman. He had a great season. However, once the postseason came, he did not deliver as much as the franchise hoped. So JT Realmuto on the Phillies was able to hit a first inside-the-park home run, which has never been done in the Phillies franchise history before. This team looks good, very put together, as they fired their manager earlier this season, lost Bryce Harper, the 2021 MVP. Now switching over gears to the Braves, without a doubt they had one of the greatest runs in regular season. Now it wasn't to the World Series necessarily. Last season they won a total of 88 games in the World Series. This year they did not make that trip back, but won a total of 101 games. You could say both teams showed up for the challenge, but only one was able to keep the World Series dream alive. The Houston Astros took a clean sweep against the Seattle Mariners. The Astros took all 3 games and stripped it from the World Series, starting from Game 1. The Astros were up. Jordan Alvarez was clearly a standout player throughout the entire series. Game 1, Alvarez hit a 2-run walk-off home run to secure the game for the Space City. Now let's address Game 3. In the matchup, we saw pitches from both the Mariners and the Astros compete neck and neck. We went deep into both the bullpens as the game was scoreless until rookie Jeremy Pena was able to send a solo home run shot deep into center field in the top of the 18th. Yes, the 18th inning. Now, it only took 6 hours, but it continued the run for the chance at the World Series. As they came up short, the Atlanta Braves last year, pitcher Luis Garcia pitched a beautiful game that night as well. Garcia pitched a total of 5 innings and allowed 2 hits and was a total of 6 strikeouts. Now, the Mariners were able to keep up with the Astros along the way. If it wasn't for Alvarez and his ridiculous last-minute plays, they might have been able to take a game or 2. They finished off the season with a record of 90-72. The Mariners are definitely a team to keep an eye out for next season. Oh, I lost myself. As they will now have a successful offseason for sure. Now on to Upset City. The San Diego Braves took on the Los Angeles Dodgers for the first time. No one had the Braves beating the Dodgers on their bingo cards, and if you did, well, congratulations. Everyone was rooting for the Dodgers, and they had one of the best seasons in the franchise history. They finished off the season with 101-51. However, once the postseason began, everything had changed. The Padres won Game 4 and was secured by Jake Cronenworth. Cronenworth hit a 2-run single with 2 outs and secured the lead in the bottom of the 7th. The Padres had lost to the Dodgers 9 straight series, but ultimately broke the curse when it mattered the most. Now, this win was more than just sending the crosstown rivals back home, but it's certainly the first time the Padres will be competing for the National League Championship since the 1998. Early on, the Dodgers seemed to have the game in the bag until the 7th inning. Now, the bullpen wasn't looking too hot as they walked the Padres, and many single of the players happened. Now, as Manny Machado was struck out, they had 2 outs until Cronenworth stepped up to the plate. This was the icing on top of the cake, as every single fan of the stadium knew the game was over as the San Diego Padres had done it. The Padres will now be facing off the Phillies for a chance to advance to the World Series. As we have heard, we have 3 out of the 4 teams ready to make their World Series run. Now we will have the Cleveland Guardians or the New York Yankees joining those teams. The series is currently tied 2-2, and tonight we will find out who will advance to play the Astros in the next round. The Yankees will be starting out Jameson Taylor, and he threw really well against the Guardians back in the season matchup earlier in April. While throwing in Aaron Judge in the mix as well as a power hitter as well, the Guardians will more than likely start Aaron Clive. Now, it's not the best choice, but they definitely do have a solid relief pitchers ready to step in. Now, the Guardians have more options and more better suited in the bullpen and have more of a range. I honestly would not be surprised if the Guardians pull off the upset and beat the Yankees to take on the Astros. However, it would be nice for the Astros to beat the Yankees again. Now, that's all from me. Back to Joe and Carter at the desk.
Thank you for that, Debanny. When we return, we recap last week in Texas sports. Don't want to miss it.
Welcome back into College Press Box. Let's recap the last week in Texas athletics. Number 1, Texas volleyball is still undefeated after making quick work of the number 18 Baylor Bears on Saturday. Logan Eggleston had 18 kills, Asia O'Neal put up 8 blocks, and the Lady Longhorns won 3-1.
This year's throwback game was announced for Texas men's basketball to play in Gregory Gym against UTRGV on Saturday, November 26th. Tickets will be available to ticket holders and Texas students.
Number 22, Texas soccer extended their school record 15 straight conference unbeaten streak with a 2-1 win over West Virginia. Texas hasn't lost a Big 12 regular season match in 706 days.
Men and women's cross country competed in the 2023 Panorama Farms Invitational. Isaac Alonso and Half Night led the men's team to a third-place finish with 102 points, while Beth Ramos anchored the women to a ninth-place finish with 235 points.
Now let's take a look ahead at this week in Longhorn sports. Wednesday night volleyball taking on Iowa State. You can catch that on ESPN Plus at 6:30 p.m. Then on Thursday we got soccer facing off against the Cyclones once again, 6 p.m. Also on ESPN Plus, trying to extend that win streak to 707 games. Friday, October 21st, softball facing off against Odessa College at 6 p.m. on the Longhorn Network. And Saturday, football has a ranked Big 12 matchup against Oklahoma State at 2:30 p.m. on ABC, followed by a nightcap of volleyball against West Virginia, 7 p.m. on Longhorn Network.
Well, that'll wrap things up for this week's episode of College Press Box. Make sure to tune in to our other shows this week, including College Crossfire on Wednesday and Want to Know Sports on Friday. So thank you to our analysts, everyone in Master Control, our executive producer Samantha Pearl, and everyone else at TSTV. I'm Joseph Duffey. He's Carter Yates. Thank you for joining us. Have a good night.